What's going on YouTube? It's Tej back again with another video, and today I'm giving you my offensive position rankings for the 2021 NFL draft class. I might be a day or two or maybe even a week behind compared to everybody else on YouTube posting this, but I want to give you my thoughts on how the offensive rankings play out for this draft class. It's going to be a very laid back, very calm video. I have it all in a Google Doc that kind of just says it all, but I kind of want to give you my thoughts on this class, but I also want to hear your thoughts, so let me know in the comment section where I was wrong, right? Where should I shift these players in your mind? But also tell me where I'm right. I always love getting that gratification from this process. But also, hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you do, please hit that like button. It'll help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, like sports, like football content, excited for the draft, please consider subscribing. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Start with the QB position, and I have these tiered, sort of. Again, this is very laid back. So, Trevor Lawrence in a tier of his own. Like, we've been talking about him being a franchise guy for years now, so there's not a whole lot to be shocked about there. Has the mobility, has the arm, has the accuracy, has the leadership skills, has the proven winning record. Even, the quote this week saying, he doesn't define his legacy off of championships. Whatever, I don't really care. I don't really care what any of these QBs are saying in this process, as long as they're, like, serious about playing football. Cool. Like, whatever motivates you, it's fine. We all have different motivating factors in life, so whatever Lawrence's is, cool. Go after it. So, obviously he's QB1, and he's kind of in a tier of his own. Then you get to 2 through 4, and they're obviously in a tier: Wilson, Fields, and Lance. And I think you can make an argument for any of these guys being QB2. Like, as long as you have done the research and that's how you feel, and you're not just echoing someone else's rhetoric, I can buy into it. I just have it being Zach Wilson, right? Like, knows how to make plays happen off script. Like, that is not something you can teach guys to do. He has a super strong arm. He is mobile. He is a good athlete. Maybe a little skinny, and that's a knock on him, but his ability to throw the deep ball, he makes a lot of throws, but specifically down the field, he's got very good deep downfield accuracy, which obviously is a plus in the modern NFL. And again, his ability to make broken plays into big plays, it cannot be coached, and that's just a backyard nature about Wilson that I really like to watch. Then you get to Justin Fields, and it's funny, obviously I didn't have the YouTube channel back then, but while the 2020 draft process was playing out and everyone's talking about, Burrow and Tua and Herbert and all those guys, I was like, dude, just wait till next year. Lawrence and Fields are going 1 and 2, no doubt. Like, there's just no other way this plays out. Clearly, I was wrong. Like, it looks like Wilson's going to go 2, but Fields should be the pick at 3. Like, he runs a 4.4. He might be the most accurate passer of the football in the class. He has a cannon for an arm, and he's been a proven winner. Both of the high school ranks, keep in mind, he was ranked higher than Trevor Lawrence when the two were coming out of high school. And at Ohio State, like, they went to the college football championship both years. Or in the Final Four, excuse me. They were in the playoff both years. Like, that's crazy. This dude's a winner. And I get the knock that he's a slow processor, sits on one read. I've seen those clips, and he might be a little bit of a slow processor, but I think all these guys need to be coached up, like, in different areas. And if Fields just needs to become a better decision maker and work a little quicker, I would hope an NFL QB coach or an NFL offensive coordinator, NFL head coach for that matter, would be able to get him there. Like, that's on a coach in general to improve upon these products. None of these guys are right now going to step in and be top 8 QBs in the league. That's just not how it works. They're going to need coaching, right? Like, so I think for Fields, it's becoming a quicker decision maker. But nonetheless, if he put up all those numbers, like, go and look at those stats and think about your argument. If he's a one-read guy and he sat on one read the entirety of his 2 years at Ohio State and he put up those numbers, think about how nasty he must be. Like, that is crazy. And I think Fields kind of has a little bit of that Herbert situation. I'm not the first to say this, but the Oregon offense for Herbert was just a little too easy, clearly, and kind of dumbed it down to where it was easy to be taught and easy to be played out at the college ranks, which works fine. But then when you have Herbert, who's a franchise guy, it doesn't allow him to showcase his full ability. And it kind of feels like that's that offense at Ohio State for Fields. Like, it's a good offense, it's super effective, and it's super efficient and dominant, really, at the college ranks, but a guy like Fields doesn't get to showcase everything he can do, and he's kind of sitting on one read throughout a play just because that's the nature of the offense. So I think at the NFL ranks, obviously with proper coaching, this is a guy who could be a top 5 QB in the league. Like, he could be the next coming, like, he's not that much younger than Deshaun Watson, and obviously Deshaun Watson has a lot going off the field, but that's the potential with Justin Fields. And then we get to Trey Lance, and I mean, simply put, PFF's player comparison for him is Taysom Hill, who can play quarterback. Like, that's amazing. Like, we'll start with him being a runner. Like, he's so athletic. Obviously, he's fast. A little slower than Fields in straight line speed, but he makes up for it in straight power. Like, Lance is looking for contact, and he wants to run right through you. He'll run around you, but he wants to run through you. Like, this dude's a bulldog. And, I mean, that's where it's also like I really want Atlanta to take him at 4 because he's one of the youngest QB in the class, and it makes sense for him to sit a year, maybe even 2. You hand it off, and he's 22 years old. Get rid of Matt Ryan then, it makes a ton of sense. He's still young. But also, like, if Matt Ryan's your starter and you just give Trey Lance 8 to 10 plays in a playbook where he's your designated runner, how fun would that be to watch? Like, that'd be so sick. Think about how the 49ers used Colin Kaepernick while Alex Smith was still their starter. That last year, Smith was the actual starting QB for San Francisco, and they made that push and made it deep into the playoffs. Actually, I think that was the year they went to the Super Bowl. Smith ended up getting hurt or something like that, if my memory serves. But, like, think about Lance in that Kaepernick type of role where he's a designated runner, and then teams start to build that into their defensive game plan, and they use his arm to add another element to that, ripple effect in the playbook. So I like Lance a lot. Super strong arm. His arm use, though, it's kind of like a guy who has a Lamborghini, but is like really touchy on the brakes, doesn't like to go stop and start speed, doesn't just floor it, go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, whatever. I'm not a car guy, but that's kind of what it feels like with Lance, where he knows he has this cannon, but he's hesitant to use it. And maybe he's thinking too much in his head, like, I got to put more touch on this pass down the field, or I got to loft this a little bit more. And therefore, he's not fully using his arm strength, and he's not putting the ball out in front of receivers, and he can kind of make it a jump ball situation or leave it behind. Only the one interception, though, throughout his year in one game, if you want to include that Central Arkansas game this past year. So not really a turnover guy, but he kind of babies the arm a little bit compared to where it could be at full capacity. But again, coaching, that's something you fix in coaching. So I think Lance is a franchise guy, and that's kind of where this tier divider is. Like, I think all 4 of these guys, I think all 5 of these guys can be franchise, The real tier differentiation is, like, these guys can be elite. Like, I could see these 4 guys, if everything breaks out, being top 3 to 5 QBs in the league. Mac Jones, you've been hearing it as of late, like, he's Tom Brady 2.0. I don't think that's the case. Like, I like Mac Jones. He's more inclined to be Kirk Cousins 2.0 or Matt Ryan 2.0. But I don't know if Matt Ryan, maybe he made it in the top 5 conversation his MVP year, but, like, he won MVP and he was, like, fighting to get in the top 5. That's about Mac Jones. Like, if he has everything work out and it's the best year of his career, you might be able to argue he's, like, top 5, but then you, like, concede that he's probably 6 or 7. These guys, if everything clicks right, you're talking about top 3 to 5 guys. So I think Jones is really good, right up there with Fields when it comes to, like, just accuracy numbers, like hitting guys in the numbers, in the chest. Him and Fields are fantastic at it. But as much as you say Fields a one-read guy, Mac Jones largely at that Alabama offense was running RPOs. Like, that's literally one read. He's reading a linebacker or a safety and deciding to make the throw or hand it off. Like, it's a literal one-read system. So I think he also needs to be coached up in that area. But where he's really killing this draft process is these interviews. Like, coaches are probably just amazed with how much he knows at his age, and you probably give him a whiteboard and he'll draw it up for you, and it's probably really amazing to watch. And I get why coaches like that. And also, like, I can kind of see why San Francisco would be intrigued by him at 3. Like, earlier on, you can literally go find the mock draft on my channel, which, speaking of mock drafts, I got a 3-round mock coming your way later this week. Hopefully you're excited for it. But literally, go back on the channel and go back and find one. I think it was the first 2-round mock that I had on the channel. Maybe it was 1-rounder before that. But nonetheless, I literally said Mac Jones makes sense in San Francisco because he went from the guy at the college level who had all the weapons around him and a great scheme to where he could go to San Francisco and have all the weapons around him and a great scheme and a great coach. It's like a seamless transition for him in a lot of ways. So I can see why Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers like it. They can just literally pick up a guy from the college ranks and drop him into a similar situation at the NFL. That's fantastic. And that kind of limits how much they have to focus on the coaching side of him. I mean, obviously they're going to want to coach him up, but like when you can take your attention and put it elsewhere, everybody's vying for time. There's only a certain amount of it. So Mac Jones makes sense, and he might be the most NFL ready between these 4. I don't know if he's not more ready than Lawrence per se, but like of these 4, like he might be the most ready like week 1, maybe. But I just don't think he has the ceiling of these 3 guys. Like, I think we talk about him, and I think he's a good quarterback, and I think that's kind of where the conversation starts and finishes. Then we get to our next 3, our next tier. These are all the project guys, and I like Mond a lot. Like, 4-year starter. obviously, when it comes to him being an athlete, like, you cannot coach what he has been gifted with. Like, it's remarkable. He just needs to become a better passer in general, but also more accurate and more consistently accurate. So there's a lot of work to be done there. Maybe he's a guy who obviously he needs to sit for a year, but maybe even 2. And whether it's Washington in the second round, Chicago, Denver, Tampa Bay in the second round, I mean, they got work in front of them. But man, if everything hits right, and if he can become even just an average throw of the football, you're talking about a really solid QB and a guy who can do dynamic things that you just most quarterbacks just cannot do. Like, that's kind of the unfair nature of the game, but that's also why we love it, right? Like, we like the guys who are faster than everybody. We like the guys who are stronger than everybody. We like the guys who are smarter than everybody. And, like, Mond is just a better athlete than most. So, if he can just become a good enough passer, then, my God, like, the ceiling is through the roof. Like, then he becomes a franchise guy. Then you get to Davis Mills. Man, I think he played, 15 games at Stanford, something like that? Like, 400 snaps? But highly touted recruit coming out of high school. Big frame, strong arm, super smart, probably killing the interview process. Him like Mac Jones, that's probably part of why he's climbing boards. It makes sense why a team like maybe Denver, maybe that's like the nudge to Drew Lock. That's the little bit of competition they want to bring in. I could see a team taking a flyer on Mills because he checks so many of those boxes that he's, probably not a first-round guy. Don't buy into those CBS mock drafts that you'll see where he'd go in 32 to the Bucs. I don't buy into that, but worth a second or third-round pick for a potential really solid franchise future QB. I could see a team seeing that. A team like Denver or Chicago or maybe Washington and then Tampa Bay, teams that are competitive right now but looking for long-term answers, or not as really with Washington, it's more of an immediate long-term answer, but like Tampa Bay, like Mills can sit for 2 years behind Brady and then, eventually take over. And they are looking to fill that position. So, I don't know. I like Mills. The tape isn't wowing, but there's just not a whole lot of tape to watch. You have to go back to his high school tape, and you're not going to do that. So, then you get to Kyle Trask, and I think he's a good fit in Tampa because his weaknesses align with the weaknesses of Tom Brady, right? Like, he's not super athletic. And when it comes to when a play's breaking down, you have to go off script. Brady does it in a different way than someone like Russell Wilson or even like a Kellen Mond who's in this same project group, or Zach Wilson we talked about earlier, where it's just they get out of the pocket and then all hell breaks loose and it's just backyard football. Brady, he's gonna stay in the pocket. He'll shift back, he'll shift left, right, he'll step up in the pocket, but he's gonna live between the tackles, and then if he has to, he'll scamper out right. Trask is kind of that same player. He's not athletic enough to just be all right, it's starting to break down, I need to go out, roll out right. He's going to try to stay in the pocket as long as he can, and that footwork and that ability to buy time and have his receivers eventually be able to break away from whoever's defending them, find a soft spot in the zone, or beat their man. That's something I think Trask could really learn from Brady and be obviously valuable, a lesson for Trask, and maybe that helps him become a future franchise QB. But I like him a little bit less than Mond and Mills. Obviously, Mond has that upside you can't coach. Mills, I buy in to it of sorts. He is probably a smart guy, and that's probably why he's climbing up boards, and he was a high recruit for a reason. And in a lot of ways, what you can see from Stanford tape may not wow you, but it's solid and it's good. And maybe he just becomes a future game manager. Trask, I don't know, man. It feels like he's really weapon reliant. So I could see it. He would need to go to a setting that gives him a lot of weapons and has good protection. But nonetheless, if everything clicks right, I could eventually see Trask becoming a game managing type of QB. Then we get to 9 and 10 here. Maybe Newman should be on a tier of his own, because I could see if everything breaks perfectly right, Newman could be a starting QB one day. He's a guy who, I get why people opted out. Obviously, everybody has their own reasons, and I'm totally understanding that. But Newman definitely would have benefited from playing in this past season of college football. Additionally, he did not look all that good at the Senior Bowl. If he dominated the Senior Bowl, the rhetoric would turn into, okay, he sat the year out, but he put in the work, and he looks really good, and he's looking sharp, and he all those things that you hear. Kind of think Quinn Miners, but apply it to a QB position. That could have been Jamie Newman, but instead, he didn't play. It was kind of just meh at the Senior Bowl, and that's kind of how he's being seen right now. Obviously, a good athlete, and I think maybe not so much with Newman, because he's probably a 4th, 5th round kind of guy. More so with a guy like Book, who I don't think is an NFL QB. Book might, at his ceiling, is probably just a solid backup. But I think a guy like Book or a guy like Newman, every team should implement or have them on the roster if you have a statue QB. If you're Minnesota, Kirk Cousins doesn't do anything with his legs, so why not draft Ian Book in the 7th round? He's better than whatever kicker, punter, special teams guy you're looking at, and then create 8 to 12, maybe 15 plays in a playbook where you use his legs, bootlegs, read options, RPOs, design runs, whatever. Or him just be like the Jacoby Brissett. He's the QB sneak guy. Sam Ehlinger, he's not on the list, but he could be another one of those guys. Super athletic, has a high success rate on QB sneak. So Newman's probably too valuable. Like if he goes in the 4th round, don't use a 4th round pick on that. But like Book in the 7th or the 6th, send it. I mean, there's not much more you could really do with that pick. So Newman is a bigger project than some of these other guys. That's kind of why he's on his own tier. Honestly, he probably should just be in a tier of his own. But there's a lot of work. But maybe one day he could be like an NFL starter. Book, I just see as a backup and like a creative mixture into your playbook. Then we get to the running back position, and this should be stated off the top. I think the big play in the NFL, it can come through the running game, but you're gonna do it through the air, right? Like think about Kansas City. Like everything Mahomes does, like chunk plays come through him throwing the football. So what I look for in a running back in a lot of ways is kind of that Ezekiel Elliott build, where it's just like he's not going to break off that 80-yard run. He's just not explosive or fast enough, but like I'm going to give him the football and he's going to give me 4 or 5 every time. That's what I value on a running back. I want consistent running back play, and I want the big plays, the shots to come through my franchise, elite QB, ideally. Like if I were a GM or someone of authority in our NFL front office. So I love Najee Harris, and I love Javonte Williams. Harris, a little bit better of a pass catcher than Williams. He gets the nod there. Also, I don't think Williams was utilized that well as a pass catcher at UNC. So, maybe I should be, putting them more on an even field. But these top 3 are in tier of their own for a reason. Like these are bell cow running backs in my mind. Like, and there's no doubt. Like, I don't recommend taking a running back in the 1st round, but if any of these 3 guys were the running backs taken, like for the Steelers at 24, that's kind of the way I'm measuring it, or the Bills at 30, I'd be like, okay, you filled the need. I think you did it a little early, but you got a guy. You got a stud for that position. I love Najee Harris. He is the exact model of a running back I want. He is that Derrick Henry light without like the ability to break off the 80-yard overtime game-winning touchdown like Henry has done multiple times. But I love Najee Harris. That power and that consistency. And a lot of the same could be said about Javonte Williams. And then Travis Etienne's the opposite. Like he has power, and he is a good pass catcher, but he's the explosive, hits the hole, accelerate on a dime, takes it to the next level, takes it all the way for 80 yards. Like he's just different than the top 2 guys, and I value Harris and Williams' play style a little bit more. But with that said, if you're looking for a running back who's gonna break the big one, I can see why Etienne's RB1 for you. So then we get to Michael Carter here at 4. Really quick, sudden change of direction type of guy, but a bowling ball at the same time. It doesn't make sense, right? Like somebody that big and powerful should not be able to just change his direction as quick as Michael Carter does. Again, not a straight line speed guy, but man, his ability to just go from left to right, stop on a dime, like it's amazing. And I mean, this is a guy I wouldn't take him over these 3 in the 2nd round, but if, let's say, Harris goes in the 1st, Williams first back off in the 2nd, Etienne goes shortly after, right? Like, let's say Steelers in the 1st take Harris, Javonte Williams goes to the Falcons, and the Dolphins at the top of round 2 take Travis Etienne. And Michael Carter's on the board, and you're looking for a running back at the end of round 2. Like, pull the trigger. Like, I think he's warranted that. So late 2 into the 3rd, Michael Carter's definitely worthwhile. And then Kenny Gainwell, again, a really solid running back, but what he presents is like legit, and same thing with Demetric Felton, like legit wide receiver skills. Like these guys all catch the football well for a running back, and they are good route runners for the most part for a running back. Like Kenneth Gainwell, he catches back shoulder passes. Like this dude's insane. Like go watch the tape. And it's also like Memphis is just producing a bunch of running backs, so that's definitely kind of boosting his stock a little bit. Kind of that bias we have, like, okay, this school has breeded NFL caliber running backs, so we should like Gainwell a little bit more. And I do like Gainwell. I like him as a runner, and I like him as a feature back, as a pass catcher. So don't know if he's a full, like these guys, no doubt 3-down running backs. Michael Carter, more than likely a 3-down kind of guy. Gainwell, maybe not immediately, but maybe eventually. I do like Gainwell though. And then Kylan Hill's kind of the guy who's been forgotten about throughout this process, opted out, but obviously just turn on the tape. Like let the tape do the talking for me. Like this dude's a stud. And there's a reason before the year he was kind of the guy that we kind of pictured around 2 or 3. Like remember when it was like him and Chuba Hubbard? Like that was the conversation. Like which one of these QB or which one of these running backs could go first, or might be the guy after Etienne and Harris. that hasn't totally panned out. But I think Kylan Hill, he opted out midway through the year, but I still like the skills that he presents. Like, he has future starting running back type of talent. And then we get to these two, Sermon and Stevenson. And in specific, it kind of sucks that the Cardinals signed James Conner, which, by the way, who would have thought that was a good idea? But nonetheless, these are guys, and maybe they still, because it's a one-year deal with Conner, but Sermon and Stevenson would be really interesting fits with Chase Edmonds, excuse me. Thinking of the Stevenson, held on to that son a little too much. But just good power backs. Like Sermon, again, not going to break the big gain, and really pushed himself up boards with the college football playoff performances that he had. But nonetheless, just consistent. 5 yards, he'll churn it out at a time. And I really, despite not having explosiveness, I feel like he's a really good feature back. And that's why it's like, if I could have him and Chase Edmonds be the scat back, the elusive type, good pass catcher, and Sermon's just my first and second down short yardage guy, I would just love that pairing. And then Ramondre Stevenson, man, I'm going to quote the Goat House. If you're a fan of my channel and you aren't subscribed to the Goat House, definitely encourage you to go check him out. But he described Stevenson as the power back build who thinks he's an elusive back, and it works out perfectly. Maybe it wouldn't work out the other way, and I'm not even sure if that mindset would work out in other guys, but it does for Stevenson. Like, you look at him, you're like, Jesus, 3rd and 1. Like, this guy is just like the guy like he is the build that you want in that situation. But he sees himself and has those skill sets, just enough of those traits and ability to be an elusive, make you miss one cut type of guy. Like, in a lot of ways, he's a baby Michael Carter. Like, Michael Carter's one cut is among the best in the class. And Stevenson has that to an extent, but he has that power build and he can run with power. So these guys, 4th, 5th round picks, they'll make a team really happy. And I think they'll be able to make an immediate impact at the running back position. Sorry, didn't want to give away all the wide receivers. So we'll hold it here. We'll hold it right here. And then Khalil Herbert, I like his tape at Virginia Tech. And then we get Khalil Herbert. I like his tape out of Virginia Tech. And again, it's another school that produces running backs. So I like Herbert. Again, probably around that 5th round range, 4th, 5th, probably not the 6th, but 5th round range for Herbert. And then Demetric Felton at the Senior Bowl literally took snaps in the slot and some snaps outside. Like, in a lot of ways, I'd love to see him end up in Tampa Bay. Maybe he sneaks into the 4th round just because like Tampa Bay likes him that much and it's the end of the 4th round or whatever. Or Chicago could take him to be the Cordero Patterson replacement. But like, this guy's a true running back, but also has wide receiver skills, and you could use him all over on the outside, in the slot. Obviously, he's a pass catcher at the backfield, but he's also a good, solid runner of the football. So I like Felton a lot, and he's starting to rise up boards a lot. It's just tough because running back's obviously a desaturized position. So where do you pull the trigger on those guys? Like, if Najee Harris doesn't get taken in the 1st round, think about that. Like, 10 years ago, there's no way. 10 years ago, all 3 of these guys might have been able to get in. Like, just 10 years ago. If not all 3, 2 of them do in the 1st round. But now it's just not the nature of the NFL. Then we get on to wide receiver. And again, I don't want to give away too much here. So, Ja'Marr Chase, the beginning of this process, has been my wide receiver 1 onward. Like, he is unbelievable. He's the youngest guy in the class. Not by a whole lot. There are some young guys like Rashad Bateman's only a couple months older than Chase, but Chase just has it. Like, he has the size, he has the frame, he runs a 4.38, he has the hands. He's a great route runner. Maybe not the best in the class, maybe not a great separator like Devonta Smith, maybe not that level, but if Smith's route runner 1A, then Chase is on his heels for 1B. So you put all that together, Chase is the best wide receiver prospect since Julio Jones, like, or Amari Cooper. You tell me which one you think in the comment section, but Chase is just a stud. It's a future all-pro level wide receiver, and I have no hesitation taking him top 5 if you're Cincinnati, top 6 if you're Miami. But we're gonna kind of come back to that and talk about Cincy in specific here in a second. And then I got Jalen Waddle at wide receiver 2. Look, he outproduced Smith when they were both on the field. Small sample size, like only 4 games. I get it. And Waddle's downfield speed can't be taught. You know, Henry Ruggs was the first wide receiver taken last year. Didn't necessarily put up the best numbers of any of the wide receivers last year. Actually, Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 4, did. And then Darnell Mooney, 3rd round guy, put up great numbers as well. Jared Jeudy had a respectable season. But nonetheless, like, Waddle has that downfield straight line speed that Ruggs has, but he's also got better change of direction. He can stop on a dime. He can shift left to right. He is way more quick and shifty again than someone like Ruggs. So, I mean, you're just getting a better Henry Ruggs. And then also underneath, like Ruggs, I'm not sure you would want to throw a shallow drag and just give him the ball in open space. You might, but I don't know how much you're trying to force that into your playbook. Jalen Waddle, whether it's a screen, a short drag, a 5-yard hitch, whatever you can get him the ball short in open space, he might be the best after the catch. Him and Elijah Moore and Kadarius Toney are like in a league of their own when it comes to just after the catch wide receivers. Like, I mean, there's a lot of really good after the catch wide receivers. Rondale Moore is another one we'll talk about later, but Jalen Waddle just after the catch is just fantastic. So he can be your field stretcher, but he can also just be your like make the game simple for our not great QB. To put that together, that's insane. So I love Waddle a lot. And then Devonta Smith, like there's not a whole lot of wide receivers who win the Heisman. Like these three, rightfully so, in a tier of their own. Like these guys are unfreaking believable. Smith is throw out the frame concerns. Like this guy knows how to get open. He's got good hands, and he's also solid after the catch. Like you do not need to worry about him being 170 pounds. Like he has had no injury history that would lead you to believe. He is not like Rondale Moore or Tutu Atwell, or going back even further, J.J. Nelson, where it's like he's 155 pounds. He's gonna get hurt. Like he weighs 15 pounds more than that, and a lot of it's muscle, and he's been apparently putting on more weight throughout this process, which is cool. Hopefully it doesn't take away from his solid speed that he has. But Smith is a great separator, inside out versatility. You gotta love that type of stuff. This is a wide receiver one in the making. Then we get to this next tier, and I mean it's tough to do these tiers with these wide receivers because like they're all great. Like these guys are all like guys I could see becoming like top 10 guys in the league. And then these guys I could see becoming high Pro Bowl level guys. Like I don't know necessarily how I differentiate this, but Rashad Bateman, you throw in that 2019 tape, not necessarily the 2020 tape, but the 2019 tape, and you're like, what? Baby Allen Robinson. And his pro day, you know, he was a little shorter than what we had hoped, and he weighed a little bit less. And it kind of feels like it's COVID weight that he lost that he hasn't been able to put back on quite yet. But I feel confident at the NFL level, strength and conditioning coaches will be able to have him put on that muscle. And if he's playing like he did in 2019, he might be able to honestly vie his way into this top tier group. Like if he played like he did in 2019 and 2020, I think you're talking about the big 4 wide receivers, big 5 pass catchers if you want to throw Kyle Pitts in there. Then you get to Kadarius Toney. I love Kadarius Toney. With his speed, explosiveness, quickness, shiftiness, and then his route running. A lot of times you'll see people who are wide receivers who are really gifted route runners, but just aren't explosive, aren't quick, don't create natural separation, with their athletic ability. Or you have guys who are great athletes, but just not polished route runners. Toney has both of those, which might make him the best separator in this class. Like I know I said Devonta Smith is a great separator, and Jalen Waddle is too, and so is Jamar Chase, very good route runner. But like, given the athletic ability plus the route running, Toney he might be the best in the class. It's insane, and it's super fun to watch on tape. His problem is his hands. Like he'll drop a lot of passes that he shouldn't. Again, coaching. Just get him the jugs machine, have him catching 200 passes in a row. It can be ironed out. And what he can do from the slot, but also as a field stretch, especially in the modern NFL, like the slot position has gone from like the guy who works underneath and has the easy throw, like the Julian Edelman, to where like it's a part of the offense that stretches the field. Creative play callers, like you'll see Tyreek Hill line up in the slot and Andy Reid sending him deep down the field, getting him in a matchup where he's lined up against other teams' worst corners. Like Kadarius Toney is exactly what I'm imagining a team being able to do. Like if Green Bay took him at the end of round 1 and LaFleur used him properly, he'd be matched up with weaker cornerbacks in that opposing team's CB room, and he could stretch the field with his speed, and he's also a good route runner to get open naturally. So I love Kadarius Toney a ton, but I like all these wide receivers, because then you got Terrace Marshall, wide receiver 6. Are you kidding me? 6'2", 6'3" frame, solid weight to go with it, runs a 4.38. Really smooth, fluid route runner. Like again, I've said this time and time again, he is among the smoothest, easiest players to watch. Like it just looks easy, kind of like what we talked about with Justin Fields. He makes the game look so easy. Marshall kind of does that from the wide receiver position, not quite to the extent of Fields, but he makes it look so simple. And calling Marshall smooth is among the nicest things I could say about him, because he makes it look like I could go out there and do it. He makes it look that easy, and that's just how simple he makes the game look. And that's obviously a big bonus in his end. And I mean, he's a guy who could go late round 1, and I wouldn't bat an eyelash to it. But also, I think he ends up maybe falling to the 2nd maybe just because of how stacked this class is. I think there's a lot of first-round guys here. And another one is Elijah Moore. Slot primarily at Ole Miss, but I think he could play on the outside. He's 5'9". He's not that small. I don't think you could... Maybe you could play Rondale Moore on the outside just because it was 42, 43-inch vertical, but Elijah Moore, I think, is actually strong enough and has the ability to beat press, and you could play him on the outside. He's only an inch smaller than the likes of, like, Emmanuel Sanders, you know, so and he's kind of got that Brandon Cooks kind of feel to him in a lot of ways, but he is fantastic after the catch. Like, if he's your slot guy and you're getting him bubble screens, you're giving him jet sweeps, you're getting him short underneath work, fantastic. But again, just like I said with Kadarius Toney, stretch the field with him. He's athletic, he's a great route runner, and he's got better hands than Toney has. So give him the ball on those deep shots. He's more likely to reel it in a lot of ways than Toney, but not quite as athletic as Toney, not quite the separator. I don't know. You're kind of splitting hairs there. Then we get to Dyami Brown, who obviously a big riser as of late, and you throw on the tape, dude, he is so fun to watch. He's electric. When it comes to just being a burner, get open down the field, make the big plays, make the crazy catches, Dyami Brown is your guy. He might drop some of the easy ones, but again, coaching. And also, like, if he makes the ridiculous catch that gets you a 50-yard gain, you can deal with the drop that happens on 1st and 10 the next play, right? Like, you don't want to have drops, but, like, give and take. There's always a process of give and take in the NFL, and, like, Brown gives you so much upside that every once in a while the head error happens to every wide receiver, and it's going to happen to Brown. But I think, again, with coaching, you can minimize those drops. But the knock on Brown is, like, along with the drops, doesn't have a whole lot of routes to his route tree, kind of like Tylan Wallace, who we'll talk about next. But Dyami Brown is just the case of, like, Sam Howell can throw it further than everybody else, and Dyami Brown can outrun everybody else. So what do you need him to know how to run a comeback for? Why is he running slants? No, send him deep, run him on a 9, and have Howell bomb it over everybody. So I think, given his explosive nature and what you do see on tape, like, he looks like a guy who can learn more. Like, I'm not saying he's going to one day become this Devonta Smith or Devontae Adams type of guy where his route tree is ridiculous and that's his craft, but I think he's going to learn enough to have, with his explosive nature and his big play ability, to where he becomes a wide receiver 1 type of guy or high-end wide receiver 2. And Dyami Brown, single-handedly alone, makes me want the Bengals to go Penei Sewell at 5. I have long believed they should take Kyle Pitts or maybe Jamar Chase, but I like Pitts a lot as just like this overall game-changing difference maker and obviously a huge upgrade over Drew Sample. But if they go Penei Sewell at 5 and Dyami Brown top of round 2, a wide receiver room as Brown as the field stretcher, Higgins as the X, Boyd as your slot. You also got Auden Tate in there. And you got Penei Sewell to beef up the offensive line. Like, that's filthy. In a lot of ways, that makes me kind of want to move that direction with my future mocks. But we'll see. Nonetheless, I love Dyami Brown. And I'm also high on Tylan Wallace. This might be a little higher than most people have Wallace at. But he's super athletic. Great field stretcher. Also, if you watch the Lions franchise on the channel, Tylan Wallace out to a good start to his career in that. Highly encourage you to check it out. But really, Oklahoma State didn't use him to his fullest potential. He's running go routes, comebacks largely every once in a while the post. So not a huge route tree, but there's no reason to think he can't add more routes to that. And also, I just think sticking him on the right side of the field, again, you're just not using him to his full capacity or full potential. Like, he's a guy, like, maybe it's a bit of a stretch based off of value where teams are seeing all these guys, but if he went in the late first, I'd be like, okay, I get it. Like, if the Bills were like, we want another long-term field stretcher, or if Green Bay was like, this is our big play threat to complement Devontae Adams, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I buy it. He's that good. I like Wallace a lot. He's a very polished route runner, all of those routes that he has run, and really solid hands, good athletic ability. I like Wallace a lot. He plays faster than his, like, 4.5, 4.82. That I had to sneak that in there. Like, or some of those guys that have lower 40s, you got to throw on the tape. Do they look like they play like that? Wallace looks like he plays a little faster. Next up is Rondale Moore, and these two are kind of in their tier of their own. I know they have knocks on them. I'm high on Wallace. I'm hesitant on Moore, though. Moore gives me concerns, right? Like, obviously 5'7", so he's a little small. Can he play on the outside? I don't know if you necessarily need him to. I think the slot position in general has become such a big need in the NFL. Like, everyone's going 3 wide. Everyone's going 3 wide for DBs, too. Like, you need 3 receivers, you need 3 corners. So if Moore's your slot guy, that's totally fine. I'm all for that. Like, that works. And he's also a great gadget piece. Like, he is among the fastest in the class. Like, him and Jalen Waddle might be the fastest. Like, straight line, go get it. I'd love to see those two run a 40-yard dash against each other. But Moore is fantastic. My knock on Moore is like the best that you saw him play was back in his freshman year, and he just never got any better. Like, it was just kind of battled injuries, showed you a moment or two, gave you a flash, and then that was kind of it. I wish I could have seen more of what I saw from him as a freshman and seen him getting better. But nonetheless, you give him the second round to a team like the Saints, create a play caller like Sean Payton. God, that'd be so fun. Or he could be the Cordero Patterson replacement in Chicago. Different body builds completely, but that guy who can be a running back and a wide receiver, maybe a kick return, special teams specialist. There's a lot of potential there for Rondale Moore. I just don't know if he has wide receiver 1 potential like these guys. And I think he's just going to be a high-end gimmick player or a really solid wrinkle in an offense. I just don't know if he's, got that Bateman to Marshall to De'Ami Brown, any of these guys kind of leveled to him. And then here are my last 5. Dwayne Eskridge, I think, is a future really solid slot wide receiver. I think he could be like a Jamison Crowder type, very kind of different. Eskridge also kind of like Moore could be that gimmick player. You use him on end arounds, jet sweeps, maybe get him in the backfield. 5'9", he's probably slot exclusive, but I think he's really good at it. He is a very good route runner, and he has very good athletic ability. He is very fast as well. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, actually somebody I kind of liked a lot more revisiting his tape. This past year at USC, played on the outside, and honestly looked just as good as he did in 2019 while playing from the slot. And it feels like it's easier, and I don't know, it's kind of a general statement. Not everybody has the same amount of success, but the NFL is kind of picking up on it too, but like it's easier to work from the slot, and you'll see guys like Keenan Allen working from the slot just because it gives them favorable matchups against weaker CBs, and it's just easier to get him the football from there. You're not asking him to have to stretch the field, especially for a guy like Keenan Allen, where he's not the fastest guy on the field. So have him work the intermediate short routes, have him work over the middle of the field. Amon-Ra St. Brown was just as good outside as he was inside. He has 6'1" height, so good enough frame. And I really am kind of liking the idea of him going to the Ravens because you watch him run block, and it feels like he embraces it. Like, not a lot of wide receivers are like, I want to put this cornerback down in the dirt. A lot of them are like, I want to catch the football. Like, Amon-Ra St. Brown wants to catch football, and he wants to be an impact player in the passing game, but he's also like, I want to embarrass the dude across from me. I really like that. You kind of pick that up from watching his tape. Then you get to Nico Collins, and maybe I'm a little higher on Collins than others in this process, but I see someone who could be a starting X-possession wide receiver in the NFL. Like, I see that potential for him. Obviously, great frame, big body, and he's very fast. Clocked in good measurables at his Michigan Pro Day. So all those check off. And in a lot of ways, it kind of feels like Donovan Peoples-Jones 2.0. But Collins really showed progression last year, and he got better as the year went on. Like, DBJ, like, you couldn't really say that. Like, it kind of just felt like he had big moments, and that was just scattered throughout a myriad of games throughout the year. But it didn't look like he was getting progressively better week by week, year by year. Collins kind of feels like he's getting there. So, again, ends up at the right spot. And maybe this is a Baltimore spot. Big body wide receiver, you'd think he'd be solid in the run game, but he could be a project and maybe the correcting of where Miles Boykin hasn't paid off for a team like Baltimore. Or maybe a team like Houston, they don't pick until the 3rd round. Maybe it's a little early for Collins, early 3rd. I'm not sure. I could see him going late 2nd, though. So maybe like Houston's looking to replace the departure of Will Fuller, and Nico Collins is a big body to complement Brandon Cooks. Maybe you can throw that in the mix. And then Amari Rodgers, really solid slot guy. And a lot of the same could be said about Moore and Eskridge, where he's one of those guys where you manufacture him touches, like end arounds, jet sweeps, have him line up as a running back, get him the ball short, screens, whatever the case may be. He really thrived in that with Clemson. Obviously benefited playing with Trevor Lawrence and playing in a great system and a great offense, a great team in general, but he really put it on and he looked really solid last year. And I think he is a future plus level slot wide receiver. And then Tutu Atwell, like, he has the potential to be a really solid slot guy and a really dynamic playmaker. I just worry about his weight. Like, he's about J.J. Nelson's size, maybe a little smaller. Nelson played for 3 years maybe? And it kind of feels like that might happen to Tutu Atwell. But nonetheless, when he's on the field, he is fun to watch. He is dynamic. He's as electric as it comes. So even if you're getting him for a small amount of time, he'll bring something to your offense that you don't have right now. Just because there's not as many people as athletic, as quick, as fast, as shifty as Tutu Atwell. Next up is the tight ends. Only 5 names for you. Kyle Pitts, duh. Pat Freiermuth is kind of that 1B. Like, Kyle Pitts is just a stud in a tier of his own. Freiermuth in a tier of his own as well, because I think he's definitely better than these next three, but not quite as good as Pitts, but dominant pass catcher, also good as a blocker. And then we get to Tommy Tremble. Maybe it's my Notre Dame bias, but he's also the best blocker of these three. Really like all three of these guys as third, fourth round options. My 3-round mock, like Tommy Tremble to Tennessee, feels like a perfect Jonnu Smith replacement. Brevin Jordan's kind of that Eric Ebron type where like he plays tight end, but he's almost never in line. He does a lot outside. He's also gotten snaps in the backfield, and he has done stuff in line at tight ends, but he's a pass catcher in the shape and in the body type of a tight end. And then Hunter Long's dominated the post, this pre-draft process, climbing up boards, getting hot at the right moment. He is your typical, he's your Kyle Rudolph guy, like sure-handed, gonna make plays over the open in the middle of the field, and really solid route runner. He's not gonna wow you, not as athletic as Pitts, doesn't break the game like Freiermuth, not quite as athletic as Freiermuth even, but just a solid, dependable guy, kind of that Kyle Rudolph build. Now on to the offensive tackles. Tier 1, Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater. I got Sewell just because of the upside, but day one, Slater's probably the better football player, but he's a little older, got a little bit more reps under his belt, so that makes sense. Sewell, though, man, if you coach him up, my God, dude, he's going to be an animal. Like, he needs to be refined. He needs to become a technically better blocker. But when he gets beat, he's so athletic that he makes up for it. Like, it's insane. There's not a whole lot of offensive linemen who can get beat and then just erase it all in the same play. Like, that's God-given talent. Like, that's unbelievable. And he's a mauler in the run game, so I think he automatically adds to your run game. So, like, if Cincinnati wanted to take him at 5 and we're okay not playing him at tackle this year, let's stick him inside a guard, like Joe Mixon's smile has got to go ear to ear. That's part of why I like the idea of Sewell going 5, Dyami Brown, going in the second round for that team. Feels like the best way to maximize everybody's potential. But, man, Sewell's upside, obviously, through the roof. And Rashawn Slater, super versatile guy, also someone who can play guard. Maybe a little small, not an elite length for a tackle, but you look at his tape and you're like, this guy can play tackle. You just forget about the measurables. You're like, this guy can play. The tape speaks for itself. I like Slater a lot. Obviously, a ton of versatility. Actually, the most played position he has is at right tackle, so kind of been kicking around the idea of maybe the Dolphins like him at 6. I don't know. Kind of a fun thing to think about. Kind of a fun question to pontificate late night about. But obviously, these two guys are future franchise top 10 linemen in the NFL kind of guys. Then we get to Christian Darrisaw and Tevin Jenkins. Kind of similar players, just on opposite sides of the line. Like, Darrisaw is definitely left tackle. Right now, Jenkins is a right tackle. That could eventually become a left tackle. But maulers in the run game. Very good athletes. Need to be refined as path blockers. Darrisaw's tape in 2020 just shows the improvement he has made. He is just going to embarrass fools, even at the next level. Like, this guy is just unbelievable. He's so strong, so quick. He is in a lot of ways this year's Mekhi Becton. I've been saying that over and over and over again. And if the progression continues, he's going to be a really good pass blocker as well as a great run blocker, especially in a power run offense. Like, if there's any way he could end up in Indianapolis, my God, Jonathan Taylor would just be so happy. But Tevin Jenkins, the same thing could be said about just from the right side. Like, I have him going to Oakland. I think that makes a ton of sense. Pave some holes for Josh Jacobs to navigate through. Mean-spirited. He fits a hole that is obviously presented. The Raiders have kind of just boxed themselves into needing a right tackle, so Jenkins makes a ton of sense there. But after Jenkins, we get on to these next two guys, which I think are still first-round guys, but late first. Cosmi had a really good pro day, so I have him going to the Bears at 20, and it feels like in that case the Bears would be reaching down the board a little bit. He's not a top 20 player in the draft, but he's a top 32, top 35, first-round talent kind of guy, and he obviously filled a position of need. Really solid pass blocker, ton of playing time, lots of reps under his belt. He feels like a plug-and-play guy. Like, may not have the ceiling of any of these guys, and that's also part of why he's in a different tier. He doesn't feel like he has the ceiling of Darrisaw as a left tackle, but maybe day one, he's just plug-and-play, and you're like, wow. Sam Cosmi was just an immediate upgrade. We needed that. He may not get a whole lot better, but if he can just stay this dependable, we're good to go. Like, this answers a question across our offensive line. And then Jalen Mayfield, in a lot of ways, feels like that at right tackle. I think Mayfield needs to get better as a pass blocker. Like, Cosmi, as an offensive lineman, has been coached up and is technically sound. Mayfield still has some room to grow there, and he's a right tackle, but he is just him in the run game, he is just mean. And this dude, if he gets kicked inside the guard, that was also part of the hard part about this. Like, you won't see Alex Leatherwood here. Leatherwood would probably be right here, underneath Mayfield, right above Dylan Radunz, or maybe right below Radunz, above Christensen. But it's tough to tell where these guys might play tackle versus guard. But if Mayfield plays guard, that dude's going to be unbelievable. But I think at this point, Mayfield might slip in the round 2. And if the Dolphins could take him at 36 and have him be the bookend protector to Tua, literally he doesn't even have to change positions, I think it's a match made in heaven. Next 3 guys, I like all 3. I like all these tackles. Also, honorable mention to James Hudson, super athletic guy from Cincinnati. Brendan James, who very well acclimated at Nebraska. Just didn't have enough room to get him on the list. But those guys are warranted a 3rd, maybe 4th round, definitely 4th round consideration, but 3rd round consideration I think as well, maybe even into this late 2nd. If we're talking about Hudson, just give it his upside. But Dylan Radunz, inside out versatility, really like him. Multi-year starter at North Dakota State. You worry about the level of play, like he's beating up on FCS guys, but also looked good at the Senior Bowl. Like, I like Radunz a lot. Brady Christensen was fantastic at BYU. Great tape. And again, similar-ish to Radunz, where it's like he's not playing anybody good. Like, and more so with Christensen than Wilson, where it's like he just didn't face anybody nearly as good as he is. But like Wilson has to like do a whole lot more. It's a little less one-on-one than like tackle edge. And, you know, the strengths of like Coastal Carolina, the best team that BYU played, the strength of their defense wasn't necessarily edge, right? So like it's in different areas which Wilson has to handle. Christensen never really had anybody opposing him, any edge player that he faced that was like an equal foe. So he kind of bullied people. But nonetheless, great tape. He beats up on people he should. And that is a valuable trait. Nobody talks about it, but it's a valuable trait. I do not want people to play down to competition. If I'm better than you, I want you to show me. And Christensen does just that. And he has great athletic measurables. When it comes to relative athletic score, this guy's like off the charts. He dominates in that area. So I think he might even get into late round 1. Like if the Chiefs are on the clock at 31, maybe there's been a run on tackles and it's Christensen or Mayfield. And Mayfield's a right tackle, so they go Christensen. I could see that happening. If not, he's definitely a lock for round 2. I don't see him getting out of round 2. Then we get to Liam Eichenberg, and I'm starting to think, despite playing at left tackle at Notre Dame, I think he fits better at right tackle. There was only one player in the NFL, I've said this a couple times on the channel, I apologize for having to say it again, but only one tackle in the NFL with sub 33-inch arms, which isn't the end-all be-all, but there's only one NFL starter with sub 33-inch arms, and it's Braden Smith, who's a damn good right tackle. So it makes sense, maybe Liam Eichenberg moves from left to play right because of the shorter arms, but he also could be a fantastic guard. So again, does he play tackle, does he play guard? It's kind of tough to make this ranking, but nonetheless, I think he's a guy who you take him late round 1, maybe, probably round 2 by now, where he's just like an 8 to 10 year starter for you. You don't even think about that position again, whether it's right tackle, left guard, whatever the case may be. Eichenberg is just going to be really solid, dependable, really good in the run game. Needs to get a little bit better in the pass blocker. Notre Dame fan, he lunges out a little bit. You could see that in tape, and it would kill me. I'd watch games, I'd be like, stop getting beat, stop lunging. But nonetheless, he has that future NFL starter type of potential. And then we get to Walker Little. I mean, Waddle definitely could be in the same tier as these guys. Like, these guys are all like future starters to me, and in a lot of ways Walker Little is too. The only reason I put a space there is just because the injuries with Walker Little. Like, he played like a couple of snaps over the last 2 years just because he's been banged up. But when he's been on the field, like, he's been considered a future first-round tackle. Like, prior to the injuries, there was buzz around him being like, yep, this is, like, that's the tackle to lead the class going into 2021, like, or 2020. Like, that's going to be the guy in 2020. And then, obviously, injuries, he, you know, doesn't declare, pushes it off to 2021, he battles more injuries, so we don't get a whole lot more tape. But the upside's there, and as a football player, he's a first-round guy. Like, when it comes to a football player, like, the talent's there, he's a first-round guy. You just don't know if he's going to play. And at the worst, it feels like he's going to be one of those guys that, say Washington takes him in the 3rd round. And when he's on the field, you're like, God, Walker Little, what a good ad. But he can only play like 6, 8, maybe 10 games a year. And like, you need to have consistency in the starting lineup. I totally get that. But you also got to take advantage of when you can get good players in. Like, even if it's not for the full 17, like, you'll take it when you can get it. So I think his injuries have played him out of the 1st round, obviously. Maybe he's a late 2nd round guy, but I have him as like a 3rd round guy. Talent wise, definitely should be a 1st rounder, but man, those injuries have just mounted up. And now you worry if he can play for more than maybe past his rookie contract. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. Next up is the interior offensive line, and that'll be the end of the video. Hope you all have enjoyed so far. But Alijah Vera-Tucker, in a league of his own here for IOL, can play so many different positions, center to guard. He's also obviously played tackle, so I thought about putting him in the tackle rankings. Some teams might draft him as a tackle. Maybe Minnesota will take him there at 14 to play left tackle, which they now have a glaring hole at. But I think he would be a good tackle, great guard, really good center. Like, that's the way I see it. And I think he's got the versatility to do it all. He's just a really good offensive lineman. Like, in a lot of ways, I really want the NFL to kind of embody the NBA's positionless model, like especially at wide receiver, where it's like, you don't need an X, you don't need a field stretcher, you don't need an X, Y, and Z. You just need 3 dudes who are good at what they do. Find ways to get them open with your scheme, get them the football, maximize their potential. You don't need an X, you don't need a possession, you don't need a field stretcher, you don't need a slot. Get 3 good wide receivers, put them out on the field. And then for offensive line, it's like, get your best 5. Don't be so rigid and be like, I need this guy to be left tackle, I need this guy to be center, I need this guy to be, like, don't sound like somebody from the Matrix. Like, go out there and get 5 football players who know how to block. And Alijah Vera-Tucker is just like the embodiment of that. Like, he can play all 5 positions. I love that, and he's going to be really good at all of them. Like, whatever you decide to play him at, he'll be really good at. Then get to Landon Dickerson, who I think is probably the next best guy, the next closest. And honestly, had he not been injured in the college football playoff, he might have been in this Vera-Tucker conversation because, obviously the big injury this past year is what we get talked about, but he also has other injuries he's had. But that, like, it happening in the college football playoff was like the straw that kind of begins to break the camel's back. If he didn't have that injury, you're like, yeah, his talent outweighs the worries about some of the injuries. He plays offensive line. He's always, banged up. But that injury, it's just kind of like, all right, now we're just getting to the point where it's, can he play the full 17 in a year? Can he give you that on a consistent basis? But then you look at the tape and you're like, this is a first-round offensive lineman. Like, this guy's dominant. And he's gotten reps at tackle. He was a starter at center and guard for Alabama. But like I said, he's got reps at tackle. Like, he, just like Vera-Tucker, can play all 5. He won't necessarily be a great tackle, but he could fill in that spot if injuries came up and, you needed to flex him out in that spot. I like Landon Dickerson. I think he's probably, if I had to put money on it, I think that's who the Steelers would take in round 1. Obviously showing my bias a little bit. Then we get to Alex Leatherwood, who, like I said, tackle-wise, probably be right here. Guard-wise, I'd put him at 3. I think he could play tackle if he goes to the team like the Colts, where he's playing next to Quentin Nelson. Those two anchoring the left side together, I'd like that a lot. And I think then you can take away some of the concerns. Also, it's just like a scheme fit. Like, I think the Colts want to run the football a lot with Jonathan Taylor, and Leatherwood's best strength is being a power blocker. So if he's a left tackle who's just a mauler, that's an offense, so that fits. Now, if he were to end up in Kansas City, where they want to drop back and throw the ball 30 times, I'm not so sure. I don't know if he's there as a pass blocker yet. That's where maybe you move him inside to guard. So he's a tackle guard, but he's a dominant run blocker, and I mean, just a mean-spirited dude when it comes to that. So I could see a team taking him as a guard and just having him pave running lanes all over the middle of the field and open up some big running holes up the middle. But a lot of teams are also breaking into, or not necessarily breaking into, but transitioning to zone outside run scheme. So Alex Leatherwood and an outside zone based offense, that's a fit. So I'm not saying he'll play guard. I'm about 50-50, maybe 60-40. But he can play tackle or guard, and he'll do it at a high level. And then we get to Creed Humphrey. Really great tape. I mean, he dominates people at Oklahoma. Multi-year starter. Probably more of a center than a guard. I kind of worry about that versatility. Can he actually play guard? I've only seen him play center. So, but nonetheless, he's going to be an awesome center for whoever takes him. So, again, sorry, partially biased on my end. The Steelers, maybe they go running back round 1, Creed Humphrey in round 2. I don't know, but nonetheless, like a team like the Rams, I think they'll go Elijah Molden or defensive playmaker if he's on the board in the second round. But Creed Humphrey, obviously plug and play starter. They need a center. So the Rams, it makes sense. Plenty of teams could use a guy like Creed Humphrey. So then we get to this next tier here. And Quinn Miners, Wyatt Davis, Trey Smith, Aaron Banks, they all kind of feel like the same player in a lot of ways. I give Miners the nudge, partially just because he's been getting hot as of late. I feel like he's higher on a lot of people's boards, but also he just, like, again, he beats up on people that he should. And I really appreciate that quality, especially from offensive linemen. And he can play center. So a little bit more versatility, I think, than Wyatt Davis, Trey Smith, Aaron Banks present. I think all these guys should be guards, but Miners could kick inside even more and play center. But they're all mean run blocking dudes. Like, these guys are going to
speed up and create a lot of running lanes for whoever drafts them. Need to get better as pass blockers. But, that's where the depth of this draft is. Like, in a lot of ways, that's why I think the Rams go Elijah Molden in the second round instead of, like, offensive line, because they can wait till round 3 and get any one of these 4 guys, plug-and-play starter. Whether at guard or maybe you transition Miners to center, or Myers can play center, but transition Davis to Smith, whatever, play one of them at center. I think there's a little bit of potential leeway and coachability, there. I think you can get them there. So, nonetheless, I mean, all these guys, great picks late. Honestly, these guys could go in the second round. Second to third round, I feel comfortable with these guys. And if any of them fall to the fourth, don't hesitate to send in the card. So then you get to Deonte Brown and Jackson Carman. Brown, I think, is another one of those power running guards. I think he needs to be coached up a little bit more compared to these other guys, but Brown easily could be grouped in with Miners, Davis, Smith, and Banks. And then Jackson Carman played tackle at Clemson. Kind of has the body of a tackle, but I don't know if he makes the leap when it comes to his talent to go to the NFL. So like many others, I see him transitioning to guard. And if that's the case, he's just going to be a really big-bodied, solid guard at the next level who's better in the run game, but also has experience as a pass blocker, as a tackle, so you hope that fares well for him as a pass blocker, as a guard. But nonetheless, that's the interior offensive line rankings, and overall, that's been my 2021 offensive draft class rankings. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Where am I right and where am I completely wrong? Hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, want more sports and NFL draft content, please subscribe to the channel. Hope you all enjoyed, and until next time, my name's Tej, and I'm signing off.
I'm part of the last generation that remembers time like God.